Welcome to the Dribble Podcast, your weekly fix of all things Perth Wildcats and Aussie basketball, presented by PerthNow.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Dribble Podcast for another NBL season. It's been a bit of a delayed start to our third season on the airwaves, but we hope you've missed us as we come back bigger and better than ever and get ready to bring in a host of Wildcat stars from across the summer. My name's Chris Robinson, but the man alongside me is the one you'll want to hear from, the heart and soul of the podcast, who we're hoping to have on as much as possible, hopefully every week, as he juggles a very busy retirement life. He is, of course, the four-time NBL champ, previous Young West Australian of the Year, and now 3-on-3 basketball specialist, Mr. Greg Hyatt. Greg, great to have you back. How are you?
Wow, I've been had a massive void in my life. Not much has changed. My facial hair hasn't grown. The only thing is you're out of a brace. The last time we saw each other,
yes,
we
the knee is improving.
Talking about me crying as I sailed off into the sunset, and now reality has sunk in where I'm working a 9-to-5 job. And obviously the City of Vincent, this is off duty where I'm already at home and I'm not on work structure hours. So.
Good. Let's make that clear from the outset.
But no, it's good to be back. Obviously, the NBL is into the season, and it wasn't because we were looking for sponsors or anything like that. It was just more so you got married.
That's correct.
So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And now you're back in Perth, and now we can be on a consistent basis. So looking forward to getting the show back and up and rolling.
Yeah, so we both took a bit of a well-earned break. You've had a break from 5-on-5 basketball anyway. I went to the US, which was nice for a bit of a holiday and checking around and seeing some NBA arenas. You know what? San Antonio was fantastic.
Did you?
And I don't just say that because we went to the Spurs season opener and I'm a massive Spurs fan. The city of San Antonio is genuinely beautiful.
Did you leverage the media credentials? Because I've seen a lot of people currently in America that maybe are studying journalism or maybe a producer on a radio show that's, I dispute their credentials, but I am seeing them like
just right pop up at games.
No, yeah, right in the thick of things, and I see a lanyard with a media pass, and so well done. Credit. So did you take advantage of that?
Do you know what? I thought about it. I thought about going to see Paddy Mills in San Antonio and potentially doing a feature on him or something, which I think I could have done. I decided that I needed a month where I just wasn't even thinking about work
enjoyed it,
for a second.
Good on you.
Not even I need to get out there at this time or have a look at how his preseason's going or whatever. I was just like, nope, I'm completely detaching myself from work for a month, which is really, really nice.
That's because you're now wife.
And plus we were on a honeymoon and we went to 3 NBA games.
Oh, ironically, we're watching an NBA game.
Did a baseball stadium tour. So awesome. I didn't want to stretch the early days of marriage. So.
Like sometimes you go to America, it's off season, no sport, and
it was by design. It was by design.
It's perfect.
We wanted October, so
you're a smart man.
Yeah, figured it out, mate. But it was very, very enjoyable. Tell me about your off season. Is your entire life now? Yeah. Well, how are you adjusting to life away from the NBL grind?
Adjusting well. Obviously, you have started a role with the City of Vincent, which I'm relishing. Obviously, I think working that job or that stint, the real world, which the basketball world is still real, but I guess your 9-to-5 has been different, but it's been good to even. I remember having my first Friday drinks, which was a bit like, I can actually do this.
Yeah. Instead of we're tipping off in 1 hour's time.
Exactly right, which was enjoyable. And then other things like scheduling a meeting at 4:30, and so like on a Friday, so like my colleagues are like, you are definitely a novice at this. Like, you don't structure meetings until after midday. That's like no-go zone. And I'm like, wait, I'm not supposed to do my job on a Friday, but okay. So
you're that guy in the office.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's been good, and obviously that's been just like the whole routine, getting up early, and getting fortunate for me, like City of Vincent have been very accommodating in terms of why I retired was to spend time with family and the flexibility of work hours and my own endeavours with a stitch in time or going away or especially with 3-on-3 was in the off season, so get in early at 7, do my lift at 5:30, and then I can get home to be with the kids. So that's been good, and then obviously Stitch and Time's full on. We've got a gala dinner in less than 2 weeks.
Excellent.
So with that
how many is this for you guys?
This will be
is
our
the
fourth year,
Okay.
and it's crazy. So
Excellent.
we've moved to Crowns, which we've enjoyed tremendous support in that regard in terms of ticket sales, corporate, and obviously the expectations lift in that regard.
Yep.
But I mean, it's obviously the support has been tremendous, and for me now, retiring, a lot of my focus and priority is shifting to that. Not just the dinner, the organisation itself. We've really enjoyed momentous sort of growth in terms of the organisation. The amount of workshops we've delivered to schools, organisations has really surpassed my expectations. And with that, I guess it was funny, like 3-4 weeks ago, we met as a board to discuss, I guess, we had to overhaul our whole direction, like our vision. When we had it 2017, 2020, I think it was maybe the expectation I was still going to be playing. And that's completely shifted to now. We obviously, the reason why we created an organisation and the focus hasn't shifted whilst we're still doing it. We're now encompassing so many different things, and more so because mental health is connecting with so many more people and can be done in so many different ways. So we're enjoying that. That's obviously really good for us, and some exciting projects that will go along with it. And we'll announce that on the show in a few weeks too. Some more fundraising endeavours, or maybe not so right for endeavours, but projects that will really, I think, create an impact in that space. And so it's been fun. And then obviously throwing on the sides, unfortunately, didn't get the news that we wanted in terms of making that Olympic qualifying tournament. It's it's such a bizarre qualification method, like FIBA and the rules of 3-on-3 and only 8 teams playing in the Olympics. They want the game to be global. So for them, they wanted a minimum of 30 countries to be represented in the qualifying tournaments. So with that, if you're not in the top 6, both men or female, only one gender would make it. And so the Australian women were ahead of us, and so we unfortunately miss out. For me, I think it's so bizarre that in essence, the best countries miss out to qualify.
You shouldn't be punished because
and even
opposite gender is strong, right?
For that, and even for me, there's two things that are crazy. One, you look at any FIBA qualification method, it's your Asian Cup champions are represented at the next level. Like Australia, if they win the Asia Cup or anything, and so for us, we've done that, and so the best team in Asia don't even get represented, or the best team in Oceania, like New Zealand, will represent the males. They didn't even qualify. They didn't even progress through to the knockout stages in the Asia Cup. So for me, you're missing out the best talent. And then the other side is, and unfortunately that's just the way 3-on-3 is that any person on the street can actually impact whether you were able to qualify for this qualifying tournament. I mean, and I'm talking ranking points. And if we had your direct staff that you're working with, and you had 36 people, and you created a weekly tournament for 20 weeks, you in essence could have actually helped Australia qualify for this tournament, like the men's program. And you had to have no experience, you just needed a venue and you needed referees. And so to see that, and obviously population size, you're seeing teams like Indonesia and all that qualify for tournaments. I played in Manila, and we played an Indonesian team where ranking points, these guys are 180,000 ranking points, and we won 21-2. And that's with 2 guys that had never played 3-on-3 before. So it just shows that. And I think after the Olympics, they will definitely refine that and try and change it. Because there's significant growth. There's obviously more and more interest, and with the Olympics going around. And for me, if you're not having the best players available, not best players available, best countries playing in that. You
just want the best amount of talent to be able to showcase.
If America didn't win at the World Cup and weren't afforded a medal, I could be wrong, but the more likely chance that the women's team wouldn't actually participate in the qualifying tournament. Which is just crazy, like to think, the best two, the best, and even France, who won the gold medal at the World Cup and won it convincingly, actually have to qualify through a qualifying tournament. So pretty crazy.
Yeah, okay. It's that was one of the more surprising stories over the off season for me, just in terms of you becoming a 3-on-3 star. I thought, and I don't mean that with any disrespect, I thought that you were just going to just put your feet up for a while and enjoy a bit of family time, and you just ramped it up a notch.
And then it was, and I love it. And like, I think the guys I played alongside, Tommy Wright and Andrew Stewart, I guess the staples, and then Timmy Conrad and Lucas Walker, like, it was such a good experience. And obviously any time you can play for Australia, it's unsurpassed that you want to do it. But I think just because obviously, one, it kept me in good nick, and I loved it, and like the experience, like I got to play in Puerto Rico for Australia in a qualifying tournament. I was in Amsterdam playing in a World Cup for a week, and then had the opportunity to go to Manila and play there, and there's those opportunities, and even that, like, I want to, obviously the Olympic dream was there, but I mean, it's a Commonwealth Games sport in 2022, so you look at it and you're like, well, if you're still playing and still in that capacity, like, why would you not want to do it, you know? And it's funny, like, it's 10 minutes of your time, and you're only really playing 7 minutes up the sub, so absolutely, you're gassed. But I think, I still love the game. I still play at a semi-professional level as well, so it's just another angle for me to play and travel the world and just annoy Ainsley even more that I retired.
Somehow seeing her even less than when you were with the Wildcats.
Exactly.
Mate, let's talk about Perth because there's plenty to discuss. They've played 9 games, so we're about, 5 or 6 weeks into the season. Plenty of changes over the off-season. We know largely about the roster changes. The coaching changes probably went a little bit under the radar. So for those who don't know, Matt Nielsen and also Adam Ford departing, and then Paul Woolpert came in and unfortunately had to leave in the opening week. So there's been a lot of change around Trevor Gleeson as their head coach. So plenty of adjusting to do for Perth. They're 6-3. They've had 3 really good away wins so far. They've been shown up a couple of times on the road, which was what happened on the weekend against a very good Sydney team. What have you made of your former team so far through the opening weeks of the season?
Yeah, I think nothing's really I think it's an accurate.
They're about where they deserve to be.
I think. I think obviously they lost to Cairns, and it's funny. Like, everyone compares seasons, and I don't go, oh well, they lost to Cairns this year. Like, it's a pass mark to lose to Cairns. I just think, again, that's just the way the league is, and they just got their colours lowered. I thought Cairns played the best game that they could have. Like, they followed their game plan to the absolute T, and like, teams that come into the Perth Arena have a free hit, and so I remember, like, Jared was here for the whole week, and we were they had a lot of confidence, and when you had a team like Wildcats started like really, really strong, come the second half, like, I knew straight away, I was like, there's danger signs at this, like, that's the only game I've attended so far, like, live. Like, I just saw Cairns in that second half just growing in stature and confidence, and and what I'm seeing in the losses is they're not single-digit losses, like, they're compiled, like they're going into double figures. And I think that is one, I want to be careful here. I'm not trying to disrespect the current coaching staff, but I think that's where the growth of the coaching staff will only continue to get better. For me, Jacob Chance has obviously done a really, really admirable job filling in that void of obviously losing 2 very experienced coaches.
Yes.
So he's obviously stepping and he's doing a very, very good job, and he will only grow.
And ahead of his years at 26.
Yeah, and even experience-wise, what you're saying, that's where Matt Nielsen and Adam Ford were really, really good. That in games where, there's stressful situations or decisions going to be made, that's where that experience, and they know Trev, right? Like, they've been with him for 2-3 years, and that in those losses, that's where, like, Trev would be looking to his side and going, this is, what rotations do I go with, what play, and it is a new group. Like, as much as, there's been only 3 changes, there's significant changes, and what I'm talking about is Angus Bryant was a significant loss. And I'm talking about the structure that the Wildcats play in, that flex offense. You throw the ball down to Gus, and when crap hits the fan and you go, I need a bucket, or I need to slow it down and get a good look, you just throw it into your post. And even Tommy Jervis. And whilst I think Dario has been an adequate replacement, he's not what the style is. Like, you don't throw the ball to him and say, hey, get me 2 points.
Yeah, he's not that sort of grinded out,
and that's the games
go
where
down
he's
the post and put moves on kind of guy.
Exactly, and so I think that's where they still need to factor in and learn that. And I think you've got two different sort of guys, and that's where I think they'll only. I guess the evolution of their style of play will change as much as, and you always hear it. I know I've heard it before when we've brought in different guys. We're going to play quicker, we're playing faster, but the style has never changed. Like Trev's not saying, "Oh, we're throwing out flex offense." It's the same style. So then they need to start learning and getting better. Okay, well, when we are struggling, like we're not going to throw into Dario. What are we going to do? And all that sort of stuff. So. Yeah, for me, it's no surprise that they're 6-3. Obviously, the Cairns game was a blemish, but yeah, I look at it, and it's a typical response. Like they lose, and then they go. So they lose to Brisbane, and you're like, yep, can understand that. Like Brisbane, a quality team.
Yep.
Like, and then they get a pretty gutsy win in New Zealand.
Yep.
Like. Credit to them. Yeah, I understand New Zealand were down numbers, but travel fatigue, just backing it up. You're playing against a hostile team that's very emotional, got a lot of emotional guys and can get it rolling. So, I think if you looked at it and after playing, this will be their 5th game on the road in a trot, which has been generally different. Like we've always had like a pretty even schedule. I think if they can go, I think this is a critical weekend. If they...
Is the split good enough this weekend?
Yeah, I think they need to go 2-0.
So Adelaide on Friday, and then
huge.
New Zealand back here on Sunday.
Because then I think that separates from the group, and I think if you want to start saying, yeah, we're a legitimate team, I think you need to beat Adelaide and go, yep, that's it. Go with an expectation. We're coming back home, and we've got that nice little stretch again because. Looking at the schedule, you're away for that period around Chrissy and New Year's, but you've got the last 6 games at home. If you can start setting yourselves up, and I think if you will look 8-3 and the circumstances, new team, brand new coaches, all that, you'd be like, yeah, definitely good. But if you split 7-4, you're like, yeah, mediocre, average, whatever. We've got some work to do. If you went 0-2. Yeah, then it's then you're really starting to question things. But I think if you're looking in-house, you'd say it's a pass mark at the moment. Yeah.
The general perception is that Sydney's the benchmark team now with the star power and the depth that they've got.
Yeah.
Another coaching point is they've got a really good coach. No disrespect to Andrew Gaze, who's one of my all-time favourite humans, but you feel like Will Weaver is that guy who's going to bring in the strategy, be able to be good cop, bad cop at times, and looks like he's got them playing really good basketball.
Yeah, and I said this at the start of the year. I think, obviously, I always think the Wildcats are going to be your favourites, but I think they are your total favourites, irrespective of the results so far. And the reason why, I want to put it out there, I think Will Weaver will be a Boomers coach in the future.
Yep.
Not just because of what's going on. I just think like the climate, and you've got I think you're seeing him respond in that manner.
Yes.
And they have a very balanced roster. They only go 8 deep, like in terms of who they use, and he's utilised those guys come off the bench, know their role, and that's what you need. But then he's playing to his strengths, and I think the recruitment of Casper Ware was huge. Like no denying. Jerome Randall was a talent.
Yeah, but it's not a monster upgrade, but he is an upgrade on Randall.
But he's a game winner, and he will take over. But he's, as much as everyone tries to say he's like this great two-way player, I don't think he's that great. Like, he's a good two-way player, but I look at it like last year, two-way player, he guards Bryce and it took him out of his game, so he couldn't score, and that's what Melbourne needed him to do.
Yep.
He can play defense for sure, but it takes out games. The luxury they have, obviously, Kevin Lish isn't there, but he is able to focus defensively. So at that moment, like if they play Wildcats in the grand final, they can put Kev on Bryce and say, hey, we know Kev's done that his whole life. He's always been renowned as that, and as he's slowing down, he'll have to focus more on defense, and hence why when he got injured, they recruited a defensive-minded point guard to be his replacement, because they don't want Casper Ware to be logging that minutes. They want him to have the ball in the fourth quarter and not be exhausted.
And you're right, during that grand final series last year, the second guy was Chris Golding, who's also not a great defender. So
correct,
and
so he had to, and even Mitch McCarron was had his hands full with Tarico, and so Casper Casper was like the first game, fantastic, real good, fresh, and then you just saw him fatigued and running around, and you don't want him. You want him to say, yeah, I'll guard for 2-3 minutes, and I'll do that. And even that, like Sean Bruce has done an unbelievable job so far.
That's been one of the great stories of the season.
Yeah, unreal, and just to see him like go, 7 or 8 assists. So even like, hey, like he'll handle the point guard duties, and you just get us buckets, and I think that helps come playoffs time when like the game completely changes. Like I'm talking physicality and all that sort of stuff. And so if Casper doesn't have to do it as much and is only required to score, yeah, really good things. And I think it can't be understood. Brad Newley really like shooting
the hell out of it.
Mate, he's shooting the best he ever is,
yeah.
and so I think, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's like a guy like Adam Ford. Fordy is such a confidence builder and personal. He does individuals, and normally you can see that like confidence and all that sort of stuff. So whether that continues on throughout the whole season, because he has had where he shoots really well, and if you start missing if you're not traditionally a shooter, you start doubting yourself. I can be a testament to that. So, but like I think that roster is built, and we'll talk about it. I guess the team so far and all that sort of stuff, but. From a lineup perspective, they're quite tough, and obviously from a coaching perspective, I think Will Weaver definitely adds another element to him. Yeah,
you also get the feeling, or I get the feeling that Bogues isn't messing around. Not that he was messing around last season, but he came into the league. It was almost kind of a free hit.
Yeah.
It wasn't really his squad. It wasn't his coach.
Yeah.
And you still have to make an adjustment coming from different leagues, knowing what calls you can get. Whereas this season, I feel like Bogues is just like,
still doesn't know
I'm not getting any younger. Wow. Actually, I want to touch on that unsportsmanlike a little bit later on. I wanted to ask you, in the wake of the loss on Sunday, the Wildcats lost to Sydney, we saw Nick Pozzaglu go in the presser as so for those who don't watch the pressers, the coach goes up and then one player from each team goes up. Nick played, I think, about 3 minutes in that game, and maybe 2 of them were junk time. What's the process there, and what's the mentality like? Because the number of times that you guys, not that you'd lose a whole lot of games during your career, but a lot of the times where you guys lost on the road, you'd see either yourself or Damo as the players in that press conference ready to own it.
Yep.
Did it surprise you that they went down that path where it was a guy who didn't have a massive contribution in the game? Would you rather have seen a captain or a player who played well in there, or does it not matter?
Yeah, look, I don't like.
Was that something that you tried to own sometimes when you guys had a bad loss? Did you put your hand up?
We have no say in it. It's Trev.
Okay.
So. But in saying that, like, there's all different circumstances, and like, I mean, obviously at home, even that, like, you're obviously going to send your captain or someone that's played well or someone more prominent. On the road, and I think it's just they just got pumped. So the last thing Trev wants to do is like, he just wants to get out of there, and so there's a recovery process. He does that, and he's like. The last thing he wants to do is talk to media, right? And so if he brings someone like that, like Poz, or a young guy, generally, if you look back, like Reece got on a lot of times, like on the road, if it was like a bigger loss, then not many questions are going to be asked, right? Because they're asking Poz 1 or 2, and they just do it out of respect. There's been a few times, I remember last year, Reece and I would like see the presser, and he wouldn't even get asked, and Trev would say, like, does anyone ask Reece anything? Oh, sweet, and leave. So I don't like it personally. Like, I always just like, not, and that's not to Trev or anything like that. I think if Poz isn't like being in that system, he looks there as a young guy. He's like, what am I getting into?
And that's where I kind of feel awkward, because I'm just kind of like, well, he's having to answer questions about a game that he barely played in.
Exactly.
And then it's awkward for us, because we feel like we have to ask him a question.
Like, and when he got asked, like, they asked him something, and if you've got like a young kid, or I look at it and go, like, if Wani gets there and he played 30 seconds or whatever, and a guy that's his very first presser, he's like, what have I got myself into? So, but I mean, look, it's when your emotions are a bit high and you do that, Trev just wants to get out, and I understand what Trev does, and I don't think it's trying to protect anyone. Like, I don't think he goes, and some of those games, like, it's literally, mate, like, Trev would walk out, debrief, and there's been some times the guys might already be in the ice bath. Like Damo, like those guys, I mean, he would have been livid, and so he would have just been doing his process, or sometimes, like, he's got family in New South Wales, so if they're already in the ice bath, Trev walks out, looks at the score sheet, looks up, the first guy he might see is Pos, and he goes, come on, like, and that's it. You know, there's no warrant. I think to clear it up and just to go the whole process is like the NBL should just say, like, just, and that, my thing is I look at it and even more so, you want accessibility, right? And you don't want these questions asked. So like take that out of the coach's hands or the club's hands. Like, you know, like let the NBL like run it. So then they get that. And to a certain point, like if you, and there's a thing, then you say, well, look, if a guy's got injury and they got to be taken care of and all that sort of stuff. But and then you're going to get all this. But I think that's where you just go free reign, like let those sort of guys go in there and or just leave it. But it's been, the press conferences have been bizarre this year. Like New Zealand have brought in like 4 people at times, like. And it's like a 10-minute presser.
New Zealand are doing things different. New Zealand have a director of basketball strategy or something, they didn't want to instead make of a coach. So what?
Yeah, well, because if they can't fire Braswell, so then they just...
It's very strange.
Yeah, so and then you see that like it happens. Like Adelaide brought in Obi Kai, I think, like after their loss with Joey, and same deal, like a guy that only played minimal minutes and all that sort of stuff.
Adelaide have been the league leaders in doing this. The number of times we saw Nelson Larkins in a presser in Perth after they lost.
Right? Yeah, and but that was like always because I was like, what is going? This is exciting. Like, what could he say? Like, so
Adelaide's always got something. At the risk of provoking Adelaide ahead of Friday night, there's always something a little bit different in Adelaide. Talk me through the unsportsmanlike foul rule, because I feel like it's been a big talking point through the first few weeks of the season. It seems like it's getting worse with regard to, so we're talking about the late game fouling situation. A team's down, you're in the final minute, possibly final half minute of a game. You need to foul to stop the clock. And more we're seeing that these fouls, and it's important to know that this is a FIBA adjudication that the refs are sort of trying to interpret. More and more these fouls are being called unsportsmanlike, and then that pretty much ends the game. Can we not find, I understand the FIBA rule, can we not find a bit more of a middle ground where you know someone's intentionally fouling?
I completely agree.
But it doesn't have to be an unsportsmanlike foul.
Yeah, that's my thing, because I think interpretation, right, is completely different. And there's some, it's cleaned up the game, like especially like sped it up, and there's a lot of circumstances, say early in the game, or if there's a traditional fast break.
And I love the rule for that. If it's a clear path,
and I understand, like even
is,
at the end of the game, you have to, in that whole, it's happened in the SBO, I've seen it too, like 4-point game, and a guy's like, I need to foul, and then he'll go, and then like he fouls, and it's actually not that bad of a foul, but they know they weren't making a play at the ball, and it's unsportsmanlike. And they're like, really? And so like from the other side,
there needs to be a difference between the two. You can't barrel through someone.
I just want to know how does that go? Like obviously FIBA are the governing body. Are they watching every single game? Are they watching Michael Aylen and they see him and they go, correct interpretation of the call. You're now like deemed good enough to do that at a FIBA level. Or if Michael Aylen does that, does that take him out of the selection panel to qualify, to do qualifiers or Asia Cup or all that sort of stuff? Like, because that's I would like to know. Like what is, if you didn't adhere to that, like if you wanted to implement the jump ball, you know, like it's a FIBA goal, like what goes on? That's what I'd love to know, because you can't, like, it's annoying and it's frustrating, but what is the ramifications of not adhering to a rule that FIBA do? Because like the referee are doing,
just add a little
exactly,
tweak
like
or a clause onto the rule.
Even I think it was on the commentary. I think Andrew Gaze was sort of talking about that, like the spirit of the game. Stuff, and I agree, because like if you're down, like it's tough, and there's been a few, like even someone got unsportsmanlike, and I think someone tripped over. Someone fell over and then they fell over them, so it was a foul in the end, and because the play it wasn't inbounded and had no aspect, like that guy wasn't going to pass it was like an unsportsmanlike foul, and I was like, well, that's dumb. They're going to get the two shots now, like so you can't even like play defensive pressure on an inbound. So I don't know, and that's where I think it needs it. Like I think it'd be good, like how that happens is the NBL have that discussion with FIBA, and FIBA even just come out with a statement saying, no, you can't implement a spirit of the game rule. Like this is not, if you want to adhere to the FIBA rules, like that's it. But like what ramifications? Like I mean, the NBA have their own rules. why is it different? Obviously, they're a different beast, but is that, like the referees, are they not part of it? All this sort of stuff. Because, I think for the betterment of the game, they got to do, but we also have an understanding what's the ramifications behind it.
Do the referees, do you ever get into a situation where you guys actually at a dead ball situation where you're about to foul because the clock's dire?
Yeah.
Is there ever a situation where you actually let the referees know, hey, I'm about to foul, just so you know I'm going to foul this guy?
But we used to, and then now you can't, because you actually have to do it for the ball. So I remember when I first started, they say, we're going to foul. Or you'd say, we're not going to foul. Because it would be like a 3 or 4 point game. Because I remember one, and this is...
Because you don't always want to foul, right? Sometimes you see if you can trap someone for 5 seconds.
Brad
and
Robbins'
then you
very last
after
game,
that.
we were down to Adelaide and we had scored, and I think it was a 3-point game. And anyway, Jason Cadee took it over. We didn't foul, and we ended up forcing a turnover or a 5-second count. And there was like maybe 8 or 10 seconds left, but we were able to trap, and we'll foul if it gets out, and we didn't, and we told the ref we're not trying to foul. And you have that, and so, but I remember out of game, I think it was pretty bizarre. I think we said we're going to foul here, and then might have been Mike Aylan was like, you can't tell me that, and then we laughed, and we're like, but we're going to foul, and he's like, yeah, but you can't, and it was just like, oh my God, this is so stupid. So it's just like...
There's got to be a common sense approach to that, surely. Everyone in the building knows on occasion that you're trying to foul.
If I'm down by 4 points and 6 seconds left...
Yeah, of course. You're fouling.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, that is bizarre. Mate, let's get into some of the fan questions, because they came through thick and fast, and the ones that we don't get to, we'll certainly endeavour to get to in future weeks.
Sure.
The first one's from one of our favourites here, our old friend Adam Westerhout. Just how close is Greg to signing with Melbourne or Sydney this season? Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, had discussions
with both of those clubs.
Yeah, both of them. Very preliminary with Melbourne. They had asked me. It was actually after a 3-on-3 tournament, so they sort of just are you interested in playing? And that's where it went. I'll be open. Dean just sort of was like, well, I'm not going to waste your time. So if there's no role that we think is going to be, that you're going to enjoy, no point. And that was it. And Sydney progressed in terms of their interests. They were quite heavy. But yeah, for me, there's obviously so many different matters. There's a reason why I retired. It wasn't because I wanted to get out of the Wildcats or say, hey, let me go. I had my choice if I wanted to continue playing or not. Obviously, it was... Yeah, there's those question marks, I can still play, and I was still playing at the time, so I thought there was a bit of me, but sentimentally, obviously, I'm a one-club guy, so I love the Wildcats, so I'm not going to just go, yep, see you later.
Yep.
And so, down that pathway, going, was it a realistic option? I don't really think so, but they definitely were pretty heavy on trying to recruit me, and... now I think they're like, yeah, sweet, we made the right choice. But, can say there was discussions, but nothing too crazy.
Let me give you a hypothetical without notice. So you announced last season, before the playoffs started, you decided to you announced that you were retiring at the end of the season. Would that have changed in terms of considering other options for this season? If you guys hadn't won the title, doomsday scenario, if you hadn't made the playoffs, would that have maybe changed your mind in terms of hunger? So. Because the way that you went out was just fairy tale, obviously winning the title. Would it maybe have changed your mind just a fraction if you hadn't?
I think so. And I think even the whole scope, by the end of it, even though I had a great grand final series and had an impact, I think my role was sort of to the point where that's a reason of why I'm retiring as well. I was I could play this similar role for the next 3 or 4 years. My body's healthy and it is, but got to the point where it's I wanted more in my life. I didn't want to be doing the amount of work that I was doing only to play 6 to 8 minutes. And so it would be different if I was playing 17 to 20, and doing all that sort of stuff and really, really contributing. And if we had a poor performance at the end, then I'd be I've got still stuff to prove.
Business.
Where I was even now I laugh and I'm I won 4 NBL championships. That's crazy. Played 236 games for a club, and was vice captain and all that sort of stuff. like it's obviously there and gone, and it's relatively new. But when you look back at it, you're like, yeah, that's just nuts. Like that I was able to do that. So I don't go now and go, oh, I wish, like. And I think that some people still go, I've got unfinished business. I want to prove it. I really don't actually have anything to prove to myself or that. Like some people, and I would know that. Like, yeah, if we had finished, I'd been like, oh, I wish I could have one more season, especially when teams struggle. I can be completely honest and say, like, when pre-season started, like, I had no itch. Like, I was just like, yeah. The only time I felt my emotions, like, sort of getting the better of me was the tip of the NBL season.
Okay.
Because I ignored it, and it was only until, like, in the morning, my wife gave me a hug, and she just said, it's okay to feel crap. And I was like, what? And she's like, it's okay to miss it, and I was like, nah, and I didn't think about it, and then I was literally in the office, and I was like, far out, this is a fun time, like the season about to start, all the work that you've done in the off-season, pre-season, it culminates to what it is now, and obviously, and then even obviously missing a few games, and then getting to the first Wildcat games was such a bizarre feeling that I hated, because I think the circumstance, like they got pumped, and for a moment there I was like, I know what they're missing. Like I just wanted to get in there. Like I literally, I was conducting a court interview, and I was that close to just I told. I was having a few beers, so I can't exactly remember what I was saying to Josh, strength coach, but I basically was telling him to tell, I think at that time, like Reece or Mitch Norton to do something, like to relay the message.
Okay.
And I was like, this is wrong. I can't be doing this. Like, I'm not part of the team. I don't know what it is. Like, and so I was like, actually, don't even tell him to tell that. Like, because I remember, like, Mitch or Reece would have been like, mate, you're retired.
Especially after a few years, you might have been tell Drake that he needs to. Oh, hang on.
And it was a positive thing. Like I was just like saying what I was observing from the grandstand. So, that was the only real time I've like sort of missed it.
Okay.
And then since then, like I've been fine. And maybe because I've been so busy and doing other stuff. But I don't go, I wish I could still play.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely helps being busy.
Yeah.
This question from Chantel Tom. What does Greg think about the idea of clubs being transparent with their salaries? Certain clubs seem to be miles over. Also, Greg's opinion on the transparency of payment of luxury taxes and how the dollars are distributed by the NBL. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't mind the transparency and like saying what's the total spend of the club, but I'll give an insight, and I can because now I'm done with the player, and with the player association. Every single of those 8 clubs last year spent the salary cap floor. So what I'm saying is the salary cap was 1.3 or whatever it is now.
Yep.
You have to spend 90% of that. That's law or like rules of the league. Every single club spent that. So it wasn't like, clubs weren't spending their salary and saying like, so I always like to laugh when they're like, oh, big spend. Yeah, there's no doubt Sydney is spending more and Melbourne is spending more, and I'm sure the Wildcats are spending more.
But it's a requirement to spend. Yeah,
you're still spending it. So at a time, they're still doing that. Like, so in terms of the luxury tax, like, that is being distributed amongst the clubs. Like that I can tell you as a fact, as a player association delegate, that was being done. Now, it gets spent on a number of different ways. Like, it's got to pay superannuation for guys, all this sort of stuff, so we make sure clubs don't go under. But I can also tell you there's a really good manipulation method of the salary cap. And when I tell you this, it's not just as simple as Casper Ware's on $1 million, Bogut's on $1 million, Kevin Lisher's on $600,000. It's per game payment. So if a player is here from comes in on September 30th or October 1st, that's the first payment. And if he leaves on March, that's the salary cap. Now, if he misses a game, you can remove that game payment, like what he gets paid, like if it's an import, from your salary cap. It doesn't get paid. So, like, in the end, which might be $2.2 million in getting spent, if there's like injuries throughout the season, all that sort of stuff, it's only 1.8 mil, you know? And so from that salary luxury tax and that first spend, like it's not actually that much. And so like that's why years ago, when Sydney had Steve Blake, that's why they got rid of him, because if they kept him, their luxury tax would have been through the roof. So they were like, well, we're no chance here. Let's remove him, and we don't have to pay luxury tax. So like that's the thing. Like I understand the transparency and all that. Yeah, there's spending, but I can put it on record that teams are spending the salary cap and going more, and I'm pretty sure maybe 5 of the teams exceeded the salary cap as well. So that's your big spending teams. And then obviously, so I'd imagine Adelaide, Illawarra and Cairns are spending. But they're not even the floor. They're still spending the salary. It wasn't like they were at the 90%. So they weren't, we're on 1.1. And then there's the argument, like if you're looking at that and it's like the AFL, like you need to then look at what's the resources being spent, like from support staff to whatever, like, because as a club, right, we have the luxury, like we get paid lunch, we get lunch paid for or massage, like therapy, all that sort of stuff. So there's so many more things than just here. There's X amount of dollars for this player. It's interesting. But I would like to say that. But does it dispute the championship? Like as a Wildcats fan, we've won a lot of championships. If they had released every single salary, and we're like, oh well, Wildcats spent 2.1 and Melbourne spent 2.15. Does that go, oh, well, and we lost that? Oh, no, because Melbourne spent one. No, like, it's strategic, I think. The one thing I would never encourage is the display of players' actual salaries. And when that was discussed many years ago, we, as a player association, I was heavily involved saying, no, like, that can't be put on. Just the way social media is and all that sort of stuff, you can change. Like, someone could earn themselves a contract, good on them. And I think we're not at a point.
You do see that used as a battering ram for NBA players.
Oh, for sure.
If they're playing well or just playing at a level well below their pay grade.
I remember when that discussion came out, they were like, it gets done in NRL and AFL. And I was like, there's actually no official. It's just reported. They say reported like 10 mil. And it's only that.
Try and guess who the $1 million guys are.
And you just know. And saying that too, if I get paid $1 million, I'm happy for you to criticise me, But if I get paid $60,000 and I'm driving a Nissan Pulsar, I don't want you knowing about it.
Yes. That's fair enough. This one from Vincent Martin. Can you ask Greg Hire, this is controversial territory. Can you ask Greg Hire, are we about to witness the decline of champ Damian Martin in 2019-20? His game has slipped to, quote, average. Is too much reliance / pressure placed on Bryce Cotton. Let me go first here.
Yeah.
Damo's 35.
Yeah.
The only figure in the history of sports that's undefeated is Father Time. So Damo's not going to be going forever. He's 35. What I will say is I think they're using him quite smartly.
Yeah.
He's only averaging 23 minutes per game now. Obviously in tandem with Mitch Norton coming off the bench. You need to make sure that he's peachy clean peachy, what's the term I'm looking for here? Peachy fresh? Peachy something? Is it peachy keen? I might have just used the wrong expression. But you need to make sure that he's firing come February and March is my point with Damo. Look, I wouldn't be too worried about him.
And I look at there, do I think he's playing average? No. Look, his numbers, I was like, across the board, they're a little bit down. It's the scoring.
But he's never been a numbers guy.
I know. It's his impact.
I feel like we're going a decade on this. And it's the little deflections and the pressure.
And it's his leadership and all that sort of stuff. And it's a reason why they lose to Brisbane, but they win in New Zealand. It's because of a guy like that, right? Yeah. And you look across, I looked at it and there was little, like, rebounds was 0.3 and steals was still there and assist. His minutes are lower, so then you can count that. The thing is, yes, his shooting percentage is lower. He makes a couple more threes and all that. His averages jump back up, and it's not like that big. It's compounded that they've lost 3 games, so then you look at it and you go, there's a guy that's averaging 3 points, which is Damo. But you look across the board, would everyone say Nick Kay is having a great season? I would say, he's been more likely their second best player. Mm-hmm. His numbers are lower than last year, right? Yep. And so, attributed to that, they played 4 games on the road. Like, get back at home, like averages, like I don't know the stats. I've never been that thing, but points for and against, like they go up. Like
certainly do.
They will over time, like go back up now. If Dame, like if you asked him, and I'm sure he would want to shoot more better. Like there's no doubt about that. But I think the issue is if, like over weeks and weeks and weeks, we start seeing opposition guards or guys he's guarding, or team defense is struggling, because not even that, like he can't always worry about, I'm guarding Didi Lazardi, hit 28. No, it's an overall team defense, and if that escalates and that gets worse, well then that's when I see Damo is maybe on the decline, because that's what he takes care of. But right now, from offensive, I've never judged him on that, and I still think like Melbourne, when they won, massive 3 at the end, in the fourth quarter, had a few floaters against New Zealand. That's him. Like, no one's ever thought that. Yeah, you see, because he has this like odd scoring explosion and he does all that sort of stuff. But he could have two. Pardon me. Has 2 12-point games and his averages lift to what he was averaging last year.
I feel like we're really, there's a real double standard here with guys like Damo, who is. Is he the greatest defensive player the league's ever seen? He probably is.
Yeah, for sure.
Who doesn't quite have as much offense as some of the other guys,
sure.
compared to some of the offensive dynamos who are matadors on defense, and that doesn't get talked about. The fact that they're an absolute sieve defensively.
No doubt, and that's what's going to happen. Like, it's going to be the most unique situation that's been presented. Is when he retires, what direction is the club going? Right? Like, and I think Mitch Norton's the heir apparent to Damo, but is a coach going to be? Will they be ballsy enough to trust? Like, okay, because generally across the league, the import's a point guard, right? So point guard's an import. Damo is like the one Aussie that's been consistent, and you rely on like, we don't need to get this dynamo point guard, and like hence why you can have Bryce. But what happens, like that can completely change the whole structure of what the Wildcats are built around, So, and look, no issue at all. And like in his body, there's no doubt he's got niggling injuries. They've just been on the road. This is the worst timing in the world for them. Like, you travel, like it's the worst. But in terms of him being in nick, like this is the lightest. I just was at the stadium today, and he's like the lightest he's ever been. Like the work, I actually told him to eat something, because I think he's like 87, and that's a guy that used to always play around 90. So he's around 87.6, I think he was saying then. So like he's still in impeccable shape and nick, and
going upstairs and downstairs at all the home opens that he's
that's the issue. That's the issue.
Damo's going to be just fine. We don't need to worry about Damo. Last question from Nick, our good friend Nick Tan. When are we going to see Greg swinging from the rafters at RAC Arena? This is a throwback to our idea from the end of last year.
If we had the resources, we would have played it like
If we were a good podcast, we'd be like, this is what we said, bang, and then it'd go to it. But we don't. We're not going to do that.
Nick Tan, the founder and CEO of the Perth Bandits.
The Perth Bandits. See, that's another off-season story that just went bananas.
We'll go back to that next week.
We'll hit that at some point.
I've actually got a surprise for you next week.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
you got some Perth Bandits merch, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I just ruined the surprise. This is what we wanted to see. Greg coming in with the championship trophy, Wilbur style. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
I know. And I'm still waiting. Like, I'm hoping.
It could still happen at some point.
I mean, it's building up. Like, if they lose a couple of games, they, attendance rates are a bit lower. They say, well, how do we need to spark it up a little bit? Return of a vice captain hanging from the rafters, swinging from the rafters. So, I'm all for it, and I can't be more to the point when I've seen Wade or Troy saying, mate, I don't really care. Like, I know I'm not getting more banner, like my jersey retired, and if you do, you guys are idiots. Retire Sean Reddiges like ASAP.
We need to get Reddiges up there. That's something we need to do.
But in essence, if there's one thing I can have in my life as I move on to the Sydney Kings, not really, but if I move on, let me have that moment. And it's courtesy of a fan that was listening on the show, so I appreciate that. So if they want to start a hashtag campaign,
GoFundMe page.
GoFundMe.
Don't need to do that.
Yeah, no, because
it's like a change.org kind of
the change
kind of thing.
Change.org would be really good. Yeah.
Yes. More swinging Greg Hire at Perth Wildcats games.
Very good,
mate. Let's do our crystal ball before we get out of here. So for those listening the first time, we just make a prediction about something that's going to happen in the next week. Mine is Tariko White, a double-digit first half against Adelaide on Friday night. So Tariko very quiet by his standards against Sydney. Adelaide normally like to play at that up-tempo track meet kind of style. It should be a high-scoring game there in Adelaide. Tariko, very proud player, big game player. Look for him to have a really strong start against the Sixers. What do you got?
I'm going to go, I think they're going to come back. They've been at home for a little bit, and so I reckon they'll beat Adelaide in double figures.
Wow,
I think
the pounding.
Yes,
okay.
And I think you'll have two guys in double-digit rebounds, because I think that's been the weakness of the club so far. But I reckon there'll be a huge emphasis on the board. So I think, hopefully Dario and Majok feast there. But I think a guy like Reece Vega as well, maybe he's had a few big games against Adelaide too. So
that'd be nice. Nice to see Reece
I reckon,
get a bigger role.
Two guys, but I reckon they'll win double figures and go 2-0 this week.
Will there be a little bit of niggle between Perth and Adelaide? Will there be a little bit of...
mate,
there's usually something.
It's build up right now.
There's usually
too,
some sort of bubbling.
The way Adelaide is as well, like I don't think they would have been too happy against Melbourne.
Yep.
And the personality, like, you're at this little point of the season too. Like, you're going to, like, as you said, like, I think Sydney have obviously separated themselves.
Yep.
And then I think you've got Melbourne and Perth. But Adelaide are that fourth team, and I reckon that's going to be the thing. And Kevin White, like, going in there, I think he's going to be, go. But Jack McVeigh...
McVeigh doesn't mind throwing his weight around.
The
Anthony
Bunny.
Drimic.
Actually, Drimic is definitely Froling.
Froling doesn't mind throwing it around.
My mate Froling. It's definitely, and I think at home, after they've lost a few games, I think Adelaide would lose 4 on the trot if they lose this one. So I think they're going to be up and about.
And then new gym as well. So,
mate, that's
going to be big. That's a big game Friday night.
Yeah, it'll be huge.
That'll be exciting. Greg, we'll let you get out of here. Thanks
mate.
heaps for returning.
Appreciate
and we'll see you again next week. To our listeners, stay tuned to thewestaustralian.com.au for all your basketball news, and we'll chat to you next time.
The Dribble Podcast is brought to you by PerthNow, your home of sporting action from home and abroad.